Hello traders, and welcome back to the final part of the market profile section. As I said in the first part, I was either going to split out the first and the second half or do the second half separately. Obviously the first half ended up being about 2.5 hours, but I hope you agree it was necessary. You needed to understand obviously the trading hours, why I look at the markets I do, what the market profile is, why I even use market profile. So all of that needed to be covered thoroughly. So hopefully got a really good idea now of why that's happened. But look, it's pretty exciting now. We're going to get you on the charts. This is very much task one of the pro course. So I'm going to get you on the charts. So, let's get you doing some exercises and get you actually building some practical knowledge of all the theory, and let's get you putting that theory into action, which is why we're all here, isn't it? Ultimately, to make business decisions and see if we can develop some edge. So this is very much, I was going to say the first phase, but it isn't necessarily the first phase, is it? Because you've done a great amount of work already on the depth of market. So really, that was the first phase. But this is really the main first phase on a chart. And very much, if you decide to follow, obviously, the path that I've followed, then very much the rest of your career is starting here, because we'll move away from the depth of market and just get you on the charts now. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this the final part of the context section. So it's important I say this here, is that doesn't mean that VWAP, fundamentals, and this bit, acceptance and rhythm, don't form part of context. They very much do. But what it is I've recognized that this section, at least in terms of hours of learning and theory, and now this little bit of practice, I think it's enough for this particular section. And what I really want to do is, you see, because the problem is when you come to look at the market from a little bit more of a, because what you'll notice is with the market profile, when we do composite structure, as you see, I already started talking about, I'm looking at a week, I'm looking at several days. Do you remember I said the weekly profile, it gives us some problems, and therefore, obviously, by default, the fact that I'm looking even at a weekly, I'm clearly not looking at just one day by doing composites. I'm obviously trying to look for balance areas over multiple days. So the problem comes is when you go to do intraday analysis, i.e. using VWAP on an intraday, there is going to be some overlap with this section. And actually, you see, it will make sense when I didn't really want to get too far ahead, but I kind of have to, just to explain to you why I'm cutting, at least in terms of the learning, why I'm moving some of this stuff to stage 2, at least in terms of the modules, is because, so coming back to the VWAP, I use VWAP on a daily, when I say daily, I don't mean daily time frame, I mean on the day, essentially. So I use a VWAP for the day, which is the intraday, but I also use VWAP for a week. So I look at what is the volume weighted average price and the standard deviations, developing value. Now, don't worry if that doesn't make sense. I'm going to explain why it's called developing value. And you can see I've written it here, developing value versus static value. I'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, with volume profile, as you can see historically, they do tend to be static. They've already formed. But again, don't worry if this doesn't make sense. I'll explain it thoroughly in the VWAP section. But VWAP is a much more of a fluid form of value that's forming throughout the period that you're looking at. So it's very much an intra-period value measure, whereas profile is much more of a historical and static measure. But we'll discuss that going forward. But again, the point is that there's a lot of overlap, because I'm looking at VWAP, right, over a week, over a month, over a quarter, but I'm also looking at over a day. But when I teach you VWAP, I'm going to start with the day. So you see, what's going to happen is I'm going to look at VWAP over a day. I'm going to teach you, but then I'm going to have to come back to the context section and teach you VWAP over the week, the month, right? The quarter, the year. So do you see, I'm going to have to keep chopping and changing. So what I thought is, at least from a teaching perspective, the way that I split it out is I thought, you know what? It makes sense. Why don't I put, so we've done auction market theory, right? Stage 1, we've done volume profile, obviously, theoretically anyway, and we've done market profile. So, and they've been huge sections, as in we'll finish market profile in this part B. So I thought, why don't I join these up and then see with VWAP, fundamentals, let's leave that to the side for now. I might talk a little bit about it. I don't really use them, but I think it's important that at least I add a section in on them at some stage, but I'm going to probably do that much later. But with the VWAP, because like I said, I'm looking at it from a weekly, monthly, quarterly and yearly perspective, these really do belong in the context section. And then I'm looking at this also from a day perspective, which obviously belongs in the intraday section. But the problem is, like I said, I'm going to be starting here and then I'm going to come back here. So rather than, getting all the modules all over the place, I thought, why don't I just move VWAP here, essentially, and I'll just teach you the entire VWAP here. So I'll do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly VWAPs. We'll do them in stage 2. But when you actually come to viewing the market, you've got to remember these VWAPs very much belong here. So hopefully, I apologize if that sounded a bit confusing, but by the end of it, it will make much more sense. So just, bear with me. It will make a lot of sense once we actually finish learning VWAP. And then I'll explain, look, I've taught you VWAP across the board. These particular volume weighted average price measures, I want you to use as part of your contextual prep, your preparation for the day, and then obviously VWAP, when you're looking at it from a day perspective, I want you to use it in the intraday. So I'll split them out for you, but just in terms of the modules, like I say, I'm going to end stage 1 with this part B of market profile, and then we can move on to stage 2 and start looking at VWAP next. But look, for the time being, I want you to stick to just doing this task, which is market profile, and really starting to learn how to develop composites yourself. So what we'll do is let's move on to the next slide, and all of what I've said is going to start making sense slowly. Let's just focus on looking at value from one perspective at this time and point, and then we'll build value from different investor perspectives as we go along and develop understanding of obviously VWAP across different time frames, and we can look a little bit at profile as well. But really, I'll be honest with you, what you're about to see, how I combine profiles, is pretty much the foundation of everything I do. For the reasons that you saw in auction market theory, I'm looking for balance areas, and obviously it will vary. And I'll explain this depending on your horizon. If you're a longer term investor, your composites are going to be obviously much larger than someone like me who's more an intraday trader, but we can discuss that. So let's go to the next slide and then finish off part B. Okay, so like I said, very much I'm going to be getting you to be very hands-on. As soon as this particular section of me talking finishes, I'm going to get you on the charts, doing composites. It's going to be really exciting for you to really get your feet wet, really, and get stuck in. But before I do that, obviously there's some things it's going to be very helpful for you to understand, some of the pitfalls you may face as you're doing this task. Because, with the depth of market, obviously the task wasn't necessarily to get you to look for trading opportunities, was it? It's not something I want you doing for the rest of your life. In fact, I don't want you doing it anymore. That's it, done. If you've done the 3-4 months that I asked you to do, you should be incredibly competent at the things I wanted you to learn, the absorption, market orders versus pending orders, fake bids and offers, and just understanding how volume profile develops, right? Because if you've done all of that, it's really going to be helpful for you, and you're going to be so far ahead of anyone else in a professional firm who starts looking at profile, because you've put in that time watching how profile develops. And you'll notice you'll be able to, the more time you put on the market, watching profile develop. I know it's a bit boring because you weren't necessarily looking to make money, but there's a very good reason why I didn't want you to get obsessive over making money, and it will only become much more apparent later. It's to do with obviously algos and lack of opportunity, and I don't want you to waste your time doing something that isn't going to get you anywhere. And I said that before, and I don't want to go off topic here, but it's important I say it, that I'm seeing it increasingly as algorithms are obviously becoming more and more part of the market, almost 80% now, and heavily dominating the depth of market supply columns. There's just no opportunities anymore for individuals like there used to be. And I've said it before, it's very sad for me to see even professional firms just continually try to do something that isn't working anymore. And that's why I don't want you to fall into that trap. That's where my experience is really going to help you, because I'm trying to just get you looking at it. And I know I've said this multiple times before, but it's just because I know some of you will have been looking at the depth of market for the first time and think, no, I don't want to get away from that because it's amazing. But believe me, what you're about to do now is 10 times more amazing and infinitely more powerful, and you'll see that. And which actually leads me on to my next point. So why? What is it? What are we actually looking for when we're building these composites? Well, if you think back to the section where I got you to do some of the exercises on the depth of market, and I've explained this a lot during auction market theory, that really, what is the market? No matter what perspective you're looking at it from, it is the depth of market, right? I got you on a depth of market for what? Intraday, one day. If you think of market profile, I've shown you this obviously in all the sections, but in particular the last section, it's just profiles over a period of time. But whether that volume profile on the left is microscopic, like I said, where on the dome it's very tick by tick, or whether you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, it's the same thing. So why do I say that? Because in that section, what did I get you guys to do? I said that we're looking for either the market to return back to value or move away from value, i.e. mean reversion, or go out of mean reversion and move to a different part of the profile. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to define that now, and we've already defined it: balance and imbalance, right? So that's basically all we're doing, but we're just doing it from a wider lens, and I'll explain why we do that in a moment. And I have explained it many times. As I've said, it's to do with taking advantage of the edge that we as human beings can develop, and you'll very much see that when we're building composite profiles, because it's, as I show you, it's very difficult for an algorithm to do what we're about to do, and this is an incredible opportunity for us to build alpha, which is something I recognized early on in my career. But I'll come back to that in a moment, because I do want to just come back to this first point about, sorry, it's a bit thick, isn't it? Come back to this first point about why are we actually looking at this stuff? Why are we even combining profiles? Why are we looking at what we're about to do, and how does that give us trading opportunities? So coming back to what I had mentioned before in the, I believe it was module 4, where I got you doing exercises on depth of market profile. Do you remember? And all it was, the profile was very microscopic. You could almost see 10,313 contracts, etc. So I just made that up, but you know what I mean. And then the profile would be what? It'd be very thin here, and then it would sometimes bulge out here. And I'm just making it up, but this is a typical shape you might have. And then, do you remember the market was on, this would be your 4 columns, but obviously it's just a chart, isn't it? Chart, 4 columns, whatever. I'm not going to draw out the 4 columns here, but essentially, let's say the market was trading in this region, and then what? It would pop out, and then we might get somewhat absorption and etc., and then would come back, wouldn't we? And go into, So you'd already have what? Balance here, right? Can you see? It's just balance the way we've been talking about it. This you only know is the depth of market, because I told you, for all you know, this could be volume profile for a week, could be volume profile for a month, could be volume profile for a day. You don't know that. And these could just be value area lines for any period. You don't know. But do you see what we were doing now when I was trading the depth of market? I didn't talk too much about value areas back then, because can you see, I didn't want to confuse you. I wanted to do the whole auction market theory section first, so you understood about balance and imbalance. But do you remember what happened in the treasury example? The market popped out, I saw absorption, aggression coming in to sell, and where did I say we'd go back to? Balance. So that was all that was happening. What was the alternative that could have happened here? Just get rid of this, bear with me. Okay, so what was the alternative? The alternative was that we had this area of balance, right? And probably here we'd had balance earlier on in the day, and then we popped up there. So it's a terrible drawing, but let me just even this out actually. Sorry about this. Prefer to be accurate rather than confuse anyone. This may have been earlier on in the day in the treasury market, and then we popped up. Do you remember single prints? Do you remember how I said in the last part A, if the market comes down very quickly, there's single prints? That's all that is, where you get thin profiles with the single prints. I thought I'd just mention that because it was there, but we'll come back to that. If that confused you, don't worry, but I did mention it in part A. But anyway, so we come back to here, and I said the first example was what? That we broke above value, and I saw the absorption coming in, and do you remember I said return to value? Well, what was the alternative, right? The alternative was that we went up, broke out, but we never returned. We never saw absorption. In fact, either absorption came in and it failed, i.e. the people who got short got run over and they had to bail and they started getting long, or we start to see value and then we go imbalanced. Okay, so can you see what's actually happening here? Either we're looking for another, and I said this to you in module 4, you may or may not have remembered, I know it was a long time ago. I said, oh, we're looking for different areas of balance in a different area to target. Well, do you see, on a depth of market, it's very difficult for me to explain that to you, because as you remember, when I showed you the market profile over multiple days, do you see now why I said that? The depth of market targets could be away on a different day. So that's why I've obviously started to take a bird's eye view, because it allows me to see if the market goes imbalance, where's the next area of balance? So do you remember that essentially we've discussed this to death really, but that the market is balancing and then it's imbalancing, then it balances and then it imbalances, right? That's all it's doing all day long. Why is that? Well, it's got value here, it's got value here, it's got obviously value somewhere else. And I'm not going to repeat this again and again because we have covered this quite thoroughly in auction market theory. So I'm going to skim over this very quickly. But the reason why this is important is because there's only two things. That's the point of me explaining all of this again to you. Is, guys, you've got to understand there's only two things that the market is ever doing. And that is either balancing or it's imbalancing and looking for different areas of value. And we talked about this a million times with bread. Do you remember? With chocolate, with however many milk, whatever example I gave. So I'm not going to discuss it here again, but I just want to remind you that there is no other conditions apart from balance and imbalance. And in fact, I want to mention this here because, look, I mentioned it here, market condition, balance and imbalance. But I don't know if you some of you who are from a retail background, it's not like this is never mentioned. You must have heard this before where people say the market's in a range or the market is not in a range. And you need to be very good at identifying when the market is in a range. And you see indicators, and I'm not going to bash them, but I'm going to tell you, in a very, very politely, as in logically, look, think about it yourself. indicators don't tell you when the market is balanced or imbalanced, when the market's ranging or not ranging. Think about it, all these, I mean, you know what I think of them, but moving averages and things, why do you think they don't work? They only work well in imbalanced environments, right? Trending. When the market's balanced, and guys, you've got to understand, about 80% of the time, the market's in balance. And I've talked about this when the market was very volatile during coronavirus and other volatile periods. I've said to you, institutions aren't involved. And I've showed you on the depth of market that it goes so thin. Why do you think that is? Because what it is professional players, institutions, banks, whoever, whatever you want to call them, hedge funds, basically very active speculative players that are responsible for the bulk of volume. The reason why the depth disappears is because they know this. They know that 80% of the time the market is balanced, not imbalanced as in IM, but in a balanced environment, i.e. ranging. So they're very calibrated towards those environments. So when it goes imbalanced, many market players, they don't get involved. Now, I'm not talking, small imbalances. Obviously, when, you have, say, a few days of balance and then you have imbalance and then you have a few days of balance. No, they're very active in those environments. I'm talking about where you have, multiple days, weeks even, of imbalance and huge profiles. They're not active because they recognize that those periods aren't ideal conditions. But my point isn't that. My point is, did you notice how I identified that? So what this will allow you to do is it will develop your understanding of identifying market conditions. And really, that's why I wanted to say all of this, because by the end of, not necessarily the course, but at least over the next 12 months, but obviously this exercise is just really going to get you started at doing that. And that's the point of me getting you doing task 1 is, and why we're doing this. As I said, I want you to really understand the purpose and how this helps you identify trading opportunities. You need to become experts in knowing when the market is, in retail terms, ranging. I call it balance, or not ranging, and you may call it trending, whatever you want to call it, expansion or whatever. Institutions will call it imbalanced. And we already said why that is because what? Aggressive market orders, right? Market orders on the buy side are greater than market orders on the sell side, etc., etc. So look, I'm not going to, again, I keep saying this, but I've explained all of this in great detail about what balance and imbalance is. Point is, we're now going to show you, or I'm going to show you, how to identify this market condition. And really, guys, that is all I'm doing. And ladies, that's all I'm doing, okay? All I'm doing all day long in whatever market I'm trading, be it S&P, crude oil, all I'm doing is I'm identifying, is there balance or imbalance? And what it is you'll see, it's not, I wish it was as simple as that. Because there's different investors, there will be people on the depth of market will obviously find particular areas that on a composite might be balanced, but on a microscopic depth of market might be imbalanced. So, that is essentially where I guess you could call it the holy grail lies, but it's not an indicator. It's obviously using a bit of your critical thinking, and really that's where your edge and your alpha comes in, where I've said it, use your judgment. But we'll talk a lot more about that as we develop and introduce all these different lenses. I've already showed you the depth of market. I'm now going to show you composites. I'm going to show you all the investors and what different investors are looking at and how they perceive value, and you're going to have to put all of that together. But look, at the end of the day, I'll give you sort of my chart book as it looks now, and it's got all these different investor perceptions of value. You're just going to get lost, right? I needed to start you off on the depth of market so you could look at how is volume profile built up, and it just happened to be that you got an added bonus of how algorithms view value on a very microscopic time frame. We're now going to move on and look at a different lens, essentially, of static value. okay? But what we're now going to do is, and static versus dynamic, as I said, we will come back to that. I said that in the last slide. But what we're going to now do is we're going to identify this. And I know I've taken a while to go over this first bullet point, but I really cannot sort of say this enough, is that essentially you've got to be able to identify balance versus imbalance, okay? That is all you're ever doing, because all the market is doing is balancing or imbalancing, balancing or imbalancing, balancing or imbalancing. And I have had a few people ask me, well, hang on, doesn't one investor see? So you see here, this could be balance, imbalance, balance, imbalance for an algorithm. And this could just be balance, right, for a sort of bigger term perspective investor. And people ask me that. Look, don't worry about that. I acknowledge that, and I know that, believe me, and we will get into that. And that's where things really do get quite difficult and complicated. Obviously, I'll try and help you manage that, but let's identify conditions first, right? And then we can worry about different lenses and putting it all together. But that's the point, is don't worry about all that stuff about this time frame, that time frame, this investor, that investor. That's all yet to come. Just worry about, is the market balanced or imbalanced? And that's it. Then we'll put obviously all the different perspectives together, okay? So again, just to repeat the point, the purpose and why we're even doing this and identifying trading opportunities is we'll identify balance or imbalance, and what that will do is essentially, I kind of hinted at it, that in balanced environments, I said institutions are obviously calibrated to play that environment, and the reason they take their foot off the gas in or long periods of imbalance is because you trade range or balanced environments differently. So what you'll typically be doing, obviously, is you'll be fading, right? And you saw me do that. You saw me do it on the depth of market, the treasury market. I faded where I thought the market would remain in balance. Do you remember right at the top? But if you can identify that the market is imbalanced, what are you going to be doing? You're not going to be fading the market, are you? Fading as in opposing the market, because you're going to get crushed. The market's telling you something. It's seeking value higher or lower. So let's go with it, right? You call it trend trading. I don't. I call it, there's particular names I give it, okay? And we're going to get onto that, what the exact names are. But the market condition identification that I give it is imbalanced, okay? So I always know from any perspective, again, don't think about the other perspectives right now, but just any perspective in particular, whether the market is imbalanced, i.e. range, balance, or imbalance. Do you see? Where it's seeking value higher. And I talked about this in eBay. eBay's doing it all the time, but obviously it's one direction. The price will keep going up until it finds value. Right? Okay. So we just need to identify, are we here? And then we will identify trading opportunities once I introduce the VWAP. I'll give you a framework for being able to identify how to actually take the trade. So that's very close now. And the same thing, when we identify that the market is imbalanced, okay, then we will now be able to identify trading opportunities to go with the imbalance. We're not going to be trading it the same way that we do balance. So, we need to identify the market condition. Once we've done that, which is why I called it context. It's one of the best traders in the world. And I don't want to bash retail, and forgive me. Look, at the end of the day, believe me, I don't get any pleasure out of bashing retail. That's why I never mention one person in particular. All it is it just bothers me that you're using all these things in all conditions, right? When do you ever say to yourself, do you know what? I've identified this market condition, so I'm going to do things differently, or I've identified. People just don't do it. It's so important. You have to adapt. And I'm going to teach you how to do that now by showing you that the market changes from balance to imbalance, and the trading style that we use to take advantage of that is different. So first we need to identify it, right? So secondly, areas to conduct business. Context. So what I mean by that, right, is exactly this. So what have we just been talking about? We said that the market is balanced and then goes, once it gets out of balance, gets imbalanced, right? And it seeks value high, and then suddenly will go balanced, won't it? Now, how many times have you seen that? Where you try to ride the trend and it just suddenly, it goes flat, okay? Now you know why that's happening, because the market is found value. It's no longer imbalanced, okay? So we need to identify that. How do we actually identify that? Context, contextual levels, okay? You've already seen it. It's value areas, basically. Value area high, value area low, okay? So if we know that that is the value area low and that's the value area high ahead of time, would you agree? We can start to book profits, right? If we go into this previous balance area, which is what? Just a profile from before. Do you see why I call it static? Because it's static. It's not changing. It's already done. It's historic. When I get into this region, am I going to start trying to play what you call, again, I don't, as you know, I keep saying it to death, I don't call it trend, okay? I call it imbalance, but so I'm going to use those words now. But is trend as what you're used to? So let's just say it one final time. Am I going to be looking for trend trades in this area? No. Can you see the power of identifying market condition? Because as soon as we get into balance areas previously, we saw this in bread. Do you remember the bread price came down and then it got balanced after it had been imbalanced for a while? The market's happy. Why? Why are you trying to trade trend, as we call it, or retail calls it? Why? Why are you trying to, do you see? It's not what you want to do. When you're in a prior area where the market has clearly told you with transactions that, look, I'm happy here. As soon as you get in here, stop that type of trading and switch to balance trading. And this will become very clear. You know, like I said, I'm going to have VWAP with the standard deviation bands, and we're going to look for trading opportunities. So that's all to come. Very exciting stuff, and I will get you very much taking opportunities in the style that I'm describing now, balance and imbalance opportunities. So, but to do that, we obviously do need some levels, don't we? Where we can say, you know, so we've got profile here, we've got a profile here, and you know, let's say the market's here. We need a level, don't we, to say, well, if we start to build value here, is that still balance or imbalance? Well, we need a contextual level to identify when the market condition has changed. Well, if we have this level, which is the whole point of task one, essentially, you're identifying this level. Okay, so, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Composites, joining up the profiles together, and then you get these very nice value areas where you have obviously very nice normal distributions with perfect, not perfect, but you know, more ideal characteristics that allow us to see balance. Again, repeating a lot of what I've said in the past, but you know, obviously I like to do that. So just to make sure that not 90% of people get it, 100% of you get it. And then, yeah, so like I said, if we start to build value above, I can say to myself in my prep, oh, you know what? The market's imbalanced right now. So let me look for imbalanced opportunities, but to where? I need to have areas, do you see, that I'm targeting. It's not always going to go there, but come on, you always need a business plan, don't you? Where's your target? What do you expect to achieve? When you run a business, you're always looking for what? What am I likely to achieve in price? Well, this gives us the bottom end of a previous balance. I expect imbalance to sort of get into, ideally into this range, but at least here I can start booking profits. And then if we get in here, I'm done. I'm no longer looking for imbalance. And if I get some balance opportunities, and start fading like we did on the depth of market, where we look for absorption and then reversion. Whereas here, we're not. We're looking for absorption here on the south side to fail and aggression to come in, going upwards, boom, and we got a nice contextual level up here. Can you see how it's starting to develop trading ideas? Because no longer are we just looking at nothing. We're actually looking at contextual levels. So that's the point of identifying, and I know I spoke a lot about that, but it was important that I explained why we're even doing this exercise. And task one is to identify areas for us to do business, but more importantly, identify the market conditions so we know how to conduct business. So I just want to speak a little bit before I move on to the next slide about composites. So I already talked about it in part A, that we're combining obviously balance areas together, value, but I cannot stress this enough. There's no magic formula. There are going to be times where it isn't obvious what you should do. And the reason I point this out to you is because I know there's going to be, and I've seen it time and time again, I know there's going to be a lot of people who get obsessed with, oh, what's NV doing? Is he, do you see? So you might have value area here for one day, and then you might have a value area here where it slightly overlaps. Do you merge them? Do you not merge them? Some people will say, do you know what? I think there was enough value here that balanced. You see it there, this sort of little area here where they both balance. Some people will say, yeah, do you know what? I think that was 2 days that from a value perspective were very close together, so I'm going to join them together. Whereas someone else, you might say, no, do you know what? It wasn't. And that's my point. You've got to understand, there's no magic formula. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit, become obvious as we go on, that I would really be very careful how you approach this. Be loose with it. And the reason I say this is because, think about it, right? This really comes back to the reality check and the thing I said about alpha. And I cannot stress this enough. I'm going to really try and stop myself talking about it too much here, because I want to really talk about this more towards the end of the pro course. But I did mention, and I hinted, alpha, to generate alpha, you've got to be doing things that are a little bit outside the box. Because otherwise, think about it. If it was obvious, right, where value was 100% of the time, I promise you, someone out there with millions, if not billions, and there are institutions out there with that sort of money, I know, because I work there. And I used to actually develop algorithms and, I saw how much money these guys had. If stuff like this was too obvious, that doesn't mean that it's not useful for us to do it. In fact, it's great. My point is, if stuff like this was too obvious, someone would program it. And believe me, the fact it isn't, and you're going to see, the fact it isn't always clear is an amazing thing, because it allows you and I to do what? Develop edge using human characteristics, i.e. analytical capabilities that a machine can't use, because we have to apply discretion, and therefore I don't think people will quite grasp this until much further in their career. What opportunity I am giving you to generate alpha. Okay, now you might think to yourself, do you know what? Oh, it's a cop-out. Envy's not giving us something very like A plus B must equal C, because if we don't get it, then he has an opportunity to say, oh, it was you. But you've got to start approaching this differently. You've already tried that way, doing all the retail methods where people tell you, no, you do this and do that and this should happen. At the end of the day, why do you think the failure rate is so high, even in institutions? Because we are told the same things. Guys, when I went and done my, obviously I had 2 trainings, as you know, in investment banking, and then proprietary training I had. There's so many people around me who got told exactly what I did. Why did they fail then? They obviously got told the same things I did. No, it was because I recognized early in my career, hang on, I got to start to recognize things before the crowd does. Now, I'm not saying that, at the end of the day, other people won't recognize what you're doing. They will, and you want them to. It's just you want to recognize it earlier, and therefore you just will never realize until much later as you develop into a very consistent trader, because it's only going to happen when you start to do things that the crowd aren't doing. Okay, and you'll see this in my trading all the time. Is I'm always doing things that it's not that no one else is doing, but they're not doing it when I'm doing it. Does that make sense? That's alpha. That is alpha, right? End of the day, alpha is generating extra value above and beyond what? Beta, which is what everyone's doing. I'm giving you a golden opportunity. And actually, what you've got to realize, and again, I did say I didn't want to talk about this too much, but I'm just going to say it, and then I'll repeat it in the reality check section, is if I gave you, right, this perfect rule set and said, guys, when X happens and Y happens, merge the profiles together, what you've got to realize is I'd actually be doing you a disservice, because you're not going to succeed that way. So why would I tell you something? Whereas, as you know, many other people are willing to give you rules, and because that is what logically seems to make sense and it's what people want, but that's why the failure rate is so high. So let me give you the other side of the coin. You're paying me to tell you how professionals succeed, right? So I don't want to lie to you. How do professionals succeed, and why do so few of them succeed? Because they don't use these stupid rules that you hear about, oh, when this happens, you've got to merge it. No, you've got to snap out of that and start to use the guidelines I'm about to give you on the next page, but with a pinch of salt. And you start to think about whether it makes sense to you. We can compare, fine, but stick to your guns and observe. Because at the end of the day, what you'll find is sometimes you'll make better judgments than me and the market. What it actually does will be more aligned to the decisions you took, okay, rather than what I did. And therefore you're going to generate alpha for yourself. Can you see why this concept of generating alpha and doing things yourself, as I said, and proving them to yourself is so important? But look, that's not me abandoning you at all. We're going to compare stuff. And in fact, what you'll notice is I'm going to put a section after this where I talk about how you'll notice it just after this, because at the moment, obviously, I've got this Discord room, but I don't know how that's going to look in the future. So I'm going to put it separately, the section as to where we're all going to be doing this. But I'm very much going to obviously have this area where we can all compare and help each other grow. But it doesn't matter if it's different. That's what you get paid to do. So I think I've said enough on that. But what it is important, because you're going to notice this as we go into the next section, that this is really a brilliant opportunity to separate yourself from the crowd. So that's enough said here. Let's go on. I'm going to give you some guidelines about, when you should be merging profiles together. But again, as I said here, let's finish off on the final point, which is that this thing about there being grey areas, as you'll notice when I give you the guidelines, please take it as a positive, a massive positive. I'm giving you an opportunity to separate yourself from the 99.99999% that fail in this game and the very tiny amount that generate alpha. You're never going to get given those tools in the retail environment, as you know. I'm giving you those tools to generate alpha, and I can only help you so much, like 95%. The other 5%, so embrace it. Embrace this opportunity to use your judgment, okay? And, hopefully you take that on board, and it's going to make you a much better trader for it. So let's crack on and actually show you how can you generate this alpha, and where do these sort of grey areas lie that you can spot things before many other people do, even before algorithms do. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so whilst you're doing this task, which is, obviously I want you to start creating composite profiles and develop contextual levels that you're going to be taking trades from. and identifying market conditions, whether the market's balanced or imbalanced, etc. There's just 2 or 3 administrative things that I want to talk to you about. So you'll have to forgive me throughout this page. It's a bit difficult. I don't want to copy and paste parts of the chart and put it on here. It's much better now because we're getting on the charts so I've got my charts on the side. I'm going to keep bringing my charts back and forth. So there might be a little bit of back and forth going on. So you'll have to forgive me. But at the end of the day, it's going to be much better for us to look at the actual charts rather than me just having cutouts here, etc. So number 1 is, okay, so this is very much now getting into the task phase. Task 1, which is the merges. I've mentioned this before, letters or blocks, okay? So let's have a look here. So I've got the S&P 500 here, okay? And I've got the same period here. Now, I've written here letters or blocks. Guys, honestly, I don't care. It really doesn't bother me. I've had periods in my career where, as I said, I only looked at letters, I never looked at blocks. Now, I have, for the last few years, I've only looked at blocks because I gave you the reasons. I don't particularly like getting too obsessed with the letters, but I went on that journey. And you're only going to generate alpha by going on the journey. And I'm sorry to keep repeating the point, but it's important I make it because I want you to know I'm actually giving you what you wanted, right? Why have you come to me? Because you don't want a retail trading course. You want to know how the professionals do it. So if I tell you you have to use blocks, then I'm just doing what any other retail educator is doing. No, and I'm not telling you the truth. And the truth is, when you're in an institution environment, they're going to tell you that you can do whatever you want, figure it out, work it out, as in generate some alpha. See what works for you. There's no right or wrong answer. Some people can visualize. See, for me, I find it easier just to look at this and say, balance is there, balance is there. Actually, I'm not going to merge those 2. Whereas some people find it easier on here to say, do you know what? Balance is here, and I'm sorry. Let me just scroll forward. Can you see those value area lines? They're not there, but they are now. So, sorry, let me do that again. So some people might find it easier on here to say, do you know what? That's balance, and there's some overlapping balance, but not enough, so I'm not going to merge them. Okay? Whatever works for you. Try both. We'll do some exercises with both, but I just wanted to mention that here because this is why I gave the long speech I did on the previous slide. I know some of you thought, is Envy going to get on with this? But I cannot tell you. I wish, you know what? It would have saved me a lot of money and a lot of time. As in, as I said, I never really had a period where I lost money, but lost money in the sense that it held me back from really hitting the exponential curve a lot earlier in my career. It's because I became too obsessed about, oh, that guy on the prop trading floor is doing this, so I have to do what he does. No, do you know what? I dropped that stuff and I just did what worked for me. And I want you to understand that becoming a professional trader is all about developing this independence and entrepreneurial flair, which many of you have already. Look, no, don't think I'm taking that away from you. I know many of you run your own businesses, or some of you work in incredibly professional environments that require you to have entrepreneurial flair. It's just that a lot of people don't apply it. That skill that is within them to trading. Apply it here. Start to think outside of the box. Think about it when you start a business. Is there really a handbook as to, oh yeah, here you go, this is how you become? No, it don't exist. There's obviously people like me who can help you, but ultimately there's so many things you've got to figure out yourself. And that's why I'm going to keep laboring the point, and I said it in the previous slide, is because I know what's going to happen, and it's going to keep happening. People are going to say, nope, Envy's using blocks, so I'm going to use blocks because he's using blocks, and that's the right way. No right or wrong way in this. Obviously, look, guys, don't get me wrong, and I hope this puts you at ease, is that if you combine, say, this value area with that value area, clearly I'm going to say to you, look, stop. You haven't quite got it. Let's go back and try and sort of develop your understanding again. However, if you're doing this and you're combining it with this and there's some overlap and we're not sure and it's a bit, do it. See how it works. Observe it. A, and B, coming back to the original point, if you're using letters and I'm using blocks, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Okay, so don't just use blocks because I'm using blocks. Go on the journey. Try both. See what works for you. Fiddle around with both. Play around with them. You know, I want to see where we're all doing this, whether it be in Discord or whatever platform that I'm using at the time. I said, you know, I'm going to talk about that in a separate section just in case I change it in the future. Whatever platform or sort of congregational area that we're using to discuss this, I want to see both. I want to see people using blocks. I want to see people using letters, whatever suits you, okay? So that mindset, you've got to have that all the time, that where there's these grey areas and there's no right or wrong, you do what works for you and prove it to yourself and see what you find easier visually. You know, for me, it's obviously blocks. For you, it may be letters. Okay, so I think I've pretty much exhausted that point and you get it. But it was important I said it because I don't want people going away thinking, oh my God, I can't use this because Envy isn't using this. No, that's not the point. And then point number 2 is administrative. Again, is look, the tick settings and RTH settings. I've talked about RTH to death. The tick settings I haven't, and I'm not going to go into detail because it's a very personal thing, the tick settings. If you go and I appreciate you may not have watched the footprint section yet, but when you watch the footprint section, this will make a lot of sense because with the footprint, with the Renkos, and again, if this doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, but it will when you watch the footprint section, is I talk about calibrating. You know, sometimes I use 5 tick ranges, 6 ticks, 4 ticks. It can vary, and it is a very much a judgment call you need to make. However, I'm going to show you that there's some settings, okay, within, and I'm not, you look, at the end of the day, this never changes for me. I always leave it at what I do. So I use 3 tick settings for Crudor and I use 2 ticks for ES. You can use what you want. It's not going to make a massive difference in the way that volume charts and Renkos and those things do change seasonally quite a lot because you're looking very much at individual bars. It can have a big impact. But because profile periods are so big, 30 minutes and so on and so forth, and there's only so many periods through the day, as you can see, let's have a look at, for example, the ES, which we just had, right? You can see there's very few periods. Whether I use, and I'll explain what that means, whether I use different tick settings, it's not going to make a difference. So, you know, play around with them by all means if you want, or you can use the ones I do. I recommend you use the ones I do, but just make sure that they're correct when you're in the software. So let's talk about that because I understand that's not going to make sense to you unless I show it to you. So let's do RTH settings first. So if I go to, so for this I press F6, okay, and it brings up, in fact, we're doing the RTH settings, so apologies, F5, which brings up this chart settings. All you need to worry about is the start time and end time, okay? Just make sure they're correct. Now, what it is okay, with the E-mini S&P, do you remember I said the RTH is 9:30 to 4:15 Eastern time? Now I have Sierra set as US time, so it's all calibrated to Eastern. Now, if your Sierra chart is calibrated to UK time or different time zone, you can change it. But even though I'm in the UK, I like to have US time frame or zones on mine. So, you know, you just have to accept that's what I'm doing and adjust accordingly if that's not comfortable for you. But that's what I like to do. But that's A. But B, more importantly, make sure, do you remember I said we're only looking at RTH profiles? I'll set it for this for you when I obviously give you the template, but in the future sometimes you might fiddle around with things, and I like to check this. Just make sure, double check, have I got the right time frame and time zone in here? Now, what you may have noticed is, I have noticed some people put 9:30 to 4:15 in here, or 1 second before 4:15. Now, the reason I do it up to 4:30 is because what happens otherwise is you see the final period. So let's just split one of these out. This final period, the end period, what will happen is, if you think about it, if I only use 4:15, it's only going to be a 15-minute period. It's not a big deal. I know some people who are obsessive, like I said, and they're like, no, the session ends at 4:15, so I'm going to use that as 4:15. And I've done it in the past, but as I said, as I became more loose with things, this was something I developed over time, where I just started thinking, do you know what? I don't care what a book told me. I don't care what this guy told me. I care what observation told me. And what my own logic tells me. Logically, do I prefer to see a full 30-minute TPO period when all my other periods are 30 minutes? To me, it's like, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't care if my boss uses 4:15. I don't care if the other guys. No, what works for me logically, what makes sense, made more sense to me. And then it wasn't that. I thought, has my P&L changed because I decided not? No. Does it make any difference to me? No. Actually, I'm getting a better reflection of that last period's full 30-minute TPO, period. So I use 4:30, okay? I don't want my end period to just be 50%, as in 15 minutes. Because think about it, it's every half an hour, isn't it? From 9:30, so it'll be 9:30 to 10, 10 to 10:30, etc., 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 until you get to 4 o'clock. Then the last period, if you only put 4:15, it's just going to be a 15-minute period. It's going to cut it off. And actually, if you think about it, ETH goes on till what? 5 o'clock, isn't it? So you've still got another 45 minutes before the maintenance period starts. So it's a personal point. I just prefer to leave that as 4:30. So it's up to you. Again, like I said, don't do what I do. Test it. Do 4:15. Does it make a difference? For a month. Then do 4:30. Does it make a difference? Do you see, this is why I've always said to people, this journey as a trader, don't let anyone tell you it's quick. It's not. Because you're going to have to figure this stuff out. It might take you a month or two to even work out these little settings. Do I want blocks? Do I want letters? Do I want 4:15? Do I want 4:30? Do I want, this is going to confuse you, do I want the overnight profile here? I don't necessarily put it here, but I have in the past. I've had overnight and RTH split out. So I could see that we were balanced when we came into the open session. I'm going a little bit way too advanced here, but my point is, these things take time to figure out, guys. You've got to be patient. And I haven't put it here, but I will talk about it towards the end. And this, another thing, and it is important I mention this, is how long do I want you to spend doing tasks? Well, I hate putting timelines to it. It's an ideal timeline is, for this is going to be like a couple of weeks spent doing merges. I don't care if it takes you 3 months. Spend 3 months. It's going to make you a better trader. These small things, figuring them out. The advantage is when you do all this, you can do it at the weekends. You can do it anytime, right? They're all static profiles. It's great. It's an exercise you can do any time of day. After work, you come home in the evening. After dinner, weekends, doesn't matter. Just keep doing it. But anyway, so those are the settings for ES. Now, give me a second, because I just got to go and find crude oil. Okay, sorry, it took me a moment. I just have to find crude oil because things were a little bit all over the place there. So again, this time I'm going to go chart settings, which is F5. Can you see my time zone? Well, my time period, RTH. So it's right up until 1 second before, obviously, because the bell is basically at 3 o'clock. So I just, 2:30. So the RTH, I end it. So just make sure the RTH hours, because what will happen is if you don't set this, obviously it's going to give you profiles for longer than RTH. And we've already been through this to death in the last part why you don't want that. Okay, so that's essentially the RTH settings dealt with. Just make sure that in the template I give you, I haven't actually built the template because I want to put VWAP in there, and we're going to do VWAP before I give you the template. So I haven't done that yet, but yeah, when I do, it will be obvious anyway, and then just go in there and do the settings. So with this tick setting, so we've dealt with the RTH. Let's deal with, sorry, just give me a second. Let's deal with the tick settings now. So I'm not going to change the tick settings because I'm just going to tell you what I use and what it means, okay? So let's start with the E-mini S&P first. Okay, so there's this thing, where is it? Okay, this is quite a lot of stuff written at the top there, so it's not, you won't be able to see it, it's not visible, but I'll show you. So I pressed F6, right, to bring up the chart studies where my TPO is, and then I go into settings. Now there's this thing, letter block price increment in ticks, and I've got 2. Okay, so think about it, what it's saying here. Letter block. Do you remember what I said you can have letters or blocks? It doesn't matter. Let's say it's letters. The price increment in ticks is 2. Okay, and you'll also see it here where you go into chart settings. Can you see? 0.5. That's 2 ticks in the E-mini S&P. 0.25 is 1 tick. 0.5 is 2 ticks by 30-minute periods. All it's saying is each one of these letters changes every 2 ticks. Do you see? I could have it as 1 tick and you'll get loads of E's. It won't change the, obviously, high to low, because the high to low will be the high to low. But all it's going to do is, rather than printing an E every 2 ticks, it will print an E every 1 tick. Okay? It's just more granular. If I do 3 ticks, then it will do every 3 ticks. So I kind of found 2 to be a nice, happy medium for me. You can play around with it, or you can just use what I use. I'm not too fussed. I would normally, as you know, I say, look, do what suits you, but personally I think 2 is pretty much okay. I haven't changed it, I don't think, except when I fiddled with it right at the start of my career. I think it's been, I can't even remember ever changing this setting. It's been, even through all the virus period and all the, you know, shocks that have hit the economy throughout the last few years, I've never changed this setting. So, you know, I like to, whatever you choose, stick with it. I would suggest just use the same as I do, but yeah, it's up to you. And then in crude oil, I'm slightly different. And the reason for that is, and I'll tell you, it's very obvious actually. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'll just minimize crude oil. I need to go and find it again. Just 1 sec. Okay, so there's crude oil. Sorry, it's because I don't have my template. I'm building this template for you guys, so I'm not, it's a little bit messy. That's why I've had to go and look for it. Otherwise, normally if it was my own template, which I use obviously every day, then it would just be up. But anyway, we've got it, so that's the point. Exactly the same thing. We go to F6, and there you can see I've got 3 ticks. So the way you change that is you go to settings and you can see letter block price increment. So this time I want it to show me this A period. You see how I've got 37, 38, 39, 40, and then it will jump, okay? The reason I've got it as slightly higher, if you think about it, crude oil is more volatile, isn't it? It moves more than the S&P. So I don't, because the thing is, if I set it at the same level as the S&P, I'll have all these tiny A's everywhere. It'd be too much. So I found what is a nice balance for me in terms of not having too many A's. Look, what you got to remember is it doesn't really change much, in the sense that the high and the low of the A period is going to be the same, okay? The high and the low. All it is the number of A's it shows you, okay? So you don't want too many and you don't want too little, because then it's going to be meaningless, and you don't want too many because then it'll be meaningless as well. You want a nice balance, and I found, for me, that there you can see it here, 3 ticks works really nicely in crude oil. Again, I don't think I've ever changed that. I'm talking years that I've been using Market Profile. I don't think I've ever changed it, you know, however many years it's been since I've been using. Obviously I started looking at it maybe 8-10 years ago, never changed it. Okay, so you can if you want, but look, as you know, I want this to be the best education in the market and the most reflective of a professional environment. That's why I tell you these things. It's easy for me just to give you Market Profile and just not even talk about this, and you'd be none the wiser. So I hope you can appreciate why I really spend time and effort explaining every little thing to you, so you understand everything, right? And your knowledge becomes best in market. You need to know all this stuff, no point me not telling you just so I can make this a lot quicker than ideal, but no, that's not it. The best way to do it, sorry. So that's why I tell you all of this stuff. But look, those are my settings. You can do what you want, really. There's no right or wrong answer. Do what works for you. But in those instances where it comes to obviously RTH, using RTH, I would highly suggest you do use the RTH hours, because that's what obviously everyone's doing. And obviously I explained in part A why it can get a bit messy. And then the tick settings, I'd suggest you use the ones I do, because it gives you a nice balance. But try them out, see for yourself, and then if you want to revert back to what I do, then I think that's a good idea. And then this bit, using basic RTH chart to guide you, I'm going to come back to that, because what I'll show you is how I don't do it anymore, but I think it's quite nice. It's something that I was doing early in my career, where I started merging profiles. Is I used to use the chart sometimes, scrunched up, to help me identify whether it sort of makes sense for me to merge profiles together. So do you know what? I've put this up here. I don't know why I put it up here, but as in why I didn't put it down here. But let's come back to that, okay? But I'll just leave that there as a reminder. But I will come back to that. And basically that's it for the admin, albeit I'll come back to that. Let's get on with the guidelines. All right, so what I want to do in this final bit, before I get you actually doing merges for yourself and doing task 1, is I'm going to do some guidelines here, where I show you what sort of guidelines I use. Again, use your discretion. Generate alpha, and in fact I've even said it here, haven't I? I think I say it a couple times, because I said this to death in the last page. I'm not going to repeat what I was saying, but you can see why I said it so much in the last page, because it's a great opportunity for you to do that. But let me show you why that opportunity exists, and give you some guidelines as well, to help you really develop or hone your skill set in at least making what I think is a good decision. Not necessarily always the right or wrong decision, but a good decision that's going to give you a higher probability of having good contextual levels to do business from. So let's start with the first one. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep bringing the chart back and forward as I show you this, rather than just showing you cutouts here. So let's do the first one, okay? So to save time, what I'm going to do is, you will see me editing this a little bit, where I just bring the chart, I show you, then I take the chart off, but I'll edit me obviously going and bringing charts back and forward, just to obviously cut down the time. So let's do the first one. What do I mean by guideline number 1? If the overlapping value is clear, we merge them. Let's look at an example. Okay, so I've brought over here crude oil. Guys, you're going to see this quite a lot, but unfortunately it's not always the case. But maybe 30, 40, 50% of the time that you go to merge, you will get really nice balances that you can merge, okay? So when I say overlapping value, okay, so what you got to remember is, and the good thing is I did the auction market theory section, and obviously I talked to you a lot about thinking of the market in terms of value. Remember, what is our objective here? We're merging value, okay? Value and value. And do you know what? It's up to you how you do this. I'm going to be quite honest with you. Yes, it's nice to have these value area lines, and we can say that is... So you've got two ways of thinking of this. You can either say to yourself that this is, strictly speaking, value is this area, which is the 70%, and this area, which is the 70%. See, the thing is, you've got to understand, and this is why I did the probability section. What you're going to find is these are not 100% accurate. Why is that? Do you remember I talked about in the probability distribution section? Where is it? Can you see that? there's no volume here. There's no prominent, like, clear area where you've got this mode, this value. You see here, this is actually quite nice, where you see quite a nice prominent area where transactions took place. Think of the eBay example, or the million other examples I've given you. The more volume you can get in a particular area, the more people found that to be a fair price, value. But what you'll find is that a lot of distributions on the day, they're going to not make sense from a balance perspective in terms of a statistical distribution, and therefore the value area lines are not going to be like 100% perfect, right? We talked a lot about this in the previous section. So it's up to you how you do this. You can either do it mechanically, but I've talked about the trap of doing that, but you can start like that if you want. You can do it the way I do. I'll tell you honestly, I don't really pay much attention to these value area lines until I merge them, and you'll see why that is. What I like to do is, and you know what, believe it or not, I used to actually mark these with this, funnily enough, that's how I heard about this. It's called Epic Pen, but you can, whatever you want, you can use a little tool. I don't do this anymore, but I used to do this a lot. And what I used to do is, I used to mark them with this pen, like this. Balance, okay? And I would just kind of say, well, do you know what? There's balance here, and there's balance kind of here. So it's close enough, but you see in this balance area, my sort of visual balance is slightly wider. And that's because you've got to remember, on an individual day, you're going to get imperfect areas where the market didn't fill in a smooth pattern, and therefore the value areas might be slightly out. But coming back to this, can you see? Perfect balance on Wednesday and Thursday. That's about as clear as you're going to get, where there's an overlap in value. Okay, guys? We're not talking about high to low. Don't forget, we're talking about where value took place, because okay, there might have been an extreme move down here, but essentially the market did that, didn't it? And we're looking for what? The general. That's a terrible, sorry, I apologize. That's actually pretty terrible. Do that again. Market did what? Kind of did that there, okay? And what we're saying is the bulk of it took place in that region, okay? So, and in fact, what I'll do is here, I'll show you the basic RT8 chart. I'll show you why that used to be quite useful for me. But in this instance, I hope it's obvious. Basically, we had balance here and balance here. So I'm going to merge them. So how do you merge? So what you do is, right, you click on, you right click, okay, on the profile, merge with next profile on this profile, can you see? Or this one, merge with prior profile. It's up to you. So in this instance, I'm going to do merge with next profile. Guys, look, can you see now why I now pay much more attention to the value area line? Why? Look at how smooth that is. It's beautiful. Can you see what a difference it makes? Why is that? Because now we've had more data. The market's had opportunity to do what? Let me just undo this again. You've got to understand this, not as a mathematician, but just very much from a common sense, logical perspective about what's balance. It's even. What was the normal distribution? It's even. Don't worry about the mathematics. Just worry about what we're trying to measure here. Balance. So obviously we want a nice symmetrical balanced shape. Okay. And yeah, to some extent, you've got to take my word for it that these value areas have perfect, not perfect, but very, very strong statistical properties that give us very nice standardized value areas. But the more symmetrical this is, the better. And would you not agree? And it kind of makes sense that, let me just unmerge these, unmerge. So to unmerge, you just do undo all merges in this profile, okay? A lot of this stuff you can play around with and you'll figure it out, but obviously I'll try and tell you as much as I can. Sorry. Undo all merges in this profile, yeah, so it took it out. Can you see it fills in some of these problem areas that I had? it gave the market what? Opportunity. Guys, it's unbelievable how the market does this. When there's typically areas like this, the market will come very early on and it will fill them out. You know why that is, don't you? It's because the market is really wants to develop value and fill in and test the market to really see that there was true value there. So the market does that because it wants to see, does value stick in that area before we move on and seek value elsewhere, really complete that auction process, right? Auction market theory, auction process that goes on there. So you see this a lot. The market does it a lot, essentially. It loves to fill in areas. But this is one of the reasons here you're seeing why I merged them. Because as soon as I merge it, look at that, it's beautiful. I get a really prominent area for my point of control as well, which is really important. Instead of what? And I know I'm going on and on about this, but believe me, this stuff is it's magical, really. Not in a holy grail way, but in terms of identifying where the market is really like equating value to be. Very, very, very powerful in terms of statistical properties. So back to the point I was talking about, which is the point of control. Can you see here? Theory, I see too many people do this. They'll say, nope, that's the point of control. Hang on a minute, what about that? In my mind, there was decent amount of volume taking place there, and there was decent amount of volume taking place there. Why can't you say that's the point of control? Very advanced. I noticed this through years of observation. I've learnt that just because the software or some guy sitting there who's written a book says, no, that's got to be the volume or POC for market profile, obviously volume point of control for VPOC. No, sorry. I'm going to do what makes logical sense to me. And if I see a lot of volume here and I see a lot of volume here, it's very even. But look what happens when I combine it with the next day. Merge with next profile, boom. Can't be argued. Really nice, prominent area, like in terms of the point of control. But also, more importantly than that, it gives us what? Contextual levels. This is what you're building now, is trading levels, okay? Do you think it's any coincidence that we broke out of balance, right? Look what actually happened here. And I promise you, you will see this time and time again. God, this is literally, I've just randomly picked a day last October. Obviously I traded this probably, but many months ago. I don't remember what this looked like. This is just a random example. And I'm going to show you loads of this stuff. That how magical is not the right word because it sounds like some sort of holy grail, but it isn't. It's truth, basically, about what the market is doing and what it's trying to achieve. Do you remember what I said to you? Once we identify contextual levels, and sorry, I know I said I'm just going to give you guidelines, but look, I like to talk about these things so you actually know what's going on and it's not just some rule that I say, merge it, crack on. No, I want to show you what's actually going on and why we're merging and what it's telling us, right? Do you remember what I said to you, that the market is in balance in this area, and we can then identify if we're in this region, will fade. We'll look for absorption and aggression to come in, the same way we did on the depth of market, no difference. Or when we go out and we build value, imbalance. Now, what actually happened here? Think about it. Market opened here. What did it do? Drove down, tested, value, failed, built value, long opportunities here to buy the market, okay, imbalance. Can you see why these levels are absolutely crucial as part of your, in that pyramid, the 70% context? That's why I've got you doing this as stage one, because this is going to be the core part of your prep that I want you to start doing. Once I've showed you VWAP and everything, we're going to get you doing prep and stuff. Hypothesis for the day, you're going to be using these levels. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to come in the morning, right? I've been doing this for years, guys. This is what I do. So if you want to trade the way professionals do, the way I do, obviously not every professional, but at least the way I do and how I see the top professionals doing it, is you're going to come in the morning, you're going to see where the overnight traded. Let's say it's like this, and your prep is going to say, do you know what? From a composite perspective, where are we? Imbalanced. Okay, we're not in balance. We're not in a range market. And look what the market did. It went overnight and then it opened up. We drove down, and then what? You can look at order flow here and see, does it reject or does it come in and accept? Okay, and then it didn't. It rejected, didn't it? And then it went up. Boom. Let me look for trading opportunities to imbalance, or as you call it, trend bar. Obviously, I don't like to call it that, but ultimately it's the same principle. But then look what happened the next day, right? There was no merge. We broke here. Do you remember what I told you? Are you going to be looking for imbalance opportunities when you're in previous balance? No, you're not. Of course not. It's ludicrous. These have now become contextual levels for you. We're going to do this after this anyway. I'm going to show you. But look, we've opened here. Do you see? It's very dangerous to be looking for these type of trades. What you want to be doing is, look, fading. Fading. We got some rejection here. We came back in, bounced, what? Faded here, and then we ended the day here. Okay? Can you see very clear the market balanced in side of, do you see? What did it do? It just balanced inside of previous value and strong value, composite value, right? Wednesday and Thursday merged together. This is the power of merging profiles. So we've covered the overlapping value, but actually what I want to do is, this was crude oil. Let me show you just one other. So under all merges here. Let me show you the E-mini S&P, and I'll show you a very clear example, because why not? Show you a couple markets, isn't it, rather than just one. Notice how I'm showing you letters here. Blocks, letters, doesn't matter. This was my point earlier. I'm just doing this because I know some of you will like to use the letters at first. It is actually quite nice to start off with letters and then progress. But in the future, you'll see me very much doing this on blocks, but I want to do both just so I can cover off both and show to people. It doesn't really make that much difference. Right, can you see here? Balance, balance, easy decision. Overlapping value, merge. Perfect, let's merge them. Remember how we do it? Right click, merge with next profile, boom, there you go. Okay, so you've got your, now you've got trading levels. Okay, you've got that area, you've got that area. Okay, you'll see me mark these levels all the time on my charts. Okay, there you go, look. Market opened, left value. We've got a huge opportunity to trade short, and then rejection at previous value. And then we came back out and did what? We just balanced here. We just balanced. And then look, when we came back in, boom, we shot up to the other side of value. Okay, and then we broke out and then we went up. And I'll show you how to identify sort of trading opportunities within here, but look, you can see. And then we broke up the next day, we came back in, but there was no value being built here, so no trading opportunities. And then we broke out, and then potentially what? Trading opportunities to go short, because we were imbalanced. Okay, then we got rejection, same as we did here, and where did we go back? It's a previous value. Okay, I'm going to show you again, look, how to identify opportunities to look for rejection. You see the excess here, and these are all little obviously more specific trading framework using volume weighted average price, VWAP, that a lot of institutions are all using, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But the point is, first we need to be able to identify contextual levels where we can actually say, what is the market balanced or imbalanced? So here it's very much out of balance, isn't it? Here it's very much out of balance, whereas obviously although it's not merged, there is a good example of balance here. Let me just undo all merges in this profile. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, so you can see it here essentially. This day was very much within the profile of the previous day, so it was very much balancing. The reason I've shown you this example is because I don't have any obviously clear examples right now, because I've only got 4 profiles here of what I showed you in crude oil, which was the balance within a previous balance area. But let me see actually if I can find one. Like I said, I don't ever undo all merges for this. Sorry, that's it. I don't actually ever pick any of these in advance. So let's see if I can just find one here for you, where we had some sort of balance. Clear balance, and then we balance the following day within that area. Okay, so we that and that, I would merge them. Okay, and that I would merge them. Some people wouldn't, but I'll come back to that. But I just want to show you that within a balanced day, see again, that's clearly imbalance where you've got balance, so that doesn't work. In fact, what I'm going to do, I hope you don't mind, is I think the difficulty is because I didn't have it expanded, I was looking at it from such a small perspective. There you go. So I hope you can actually see the benefit of me doing this is they're not cherry picked. I'm actually showing you, a few months ago, I don't even have a clue what this looked like. So these aren't pre-picked examples. I want to show you this works all the time. So did you see what I did there? Basically, so I found what I was looking for, an example of balance within previous balance, as opposed to where you see imbalance, right? So this was, so let me just undo those two. Do you remember I said I would personally merge these? Where you merge them here, okay, and you've got your contextual levels to trade from, can you see what the next day actually did? It went imbalanced, right? It broke out and it tried to seek initially value elsewhere, and then it came back and then it settled here. But the point is, it went imbalanced. It wasn't within this balance, okay? But look at this. So I'm just showing you balance versus imbalance. That's why I wanted to do that. Would you agree? This is a nice example of where balance and balance is. So you're going to merge these 2 days, right? You're going to merge them together. Obvious one. Very, very clear. Merge. Next profile. Okay. So what do we now have? We have contextual levels to trade from. Okay. There and there. Do you see? This was what I was trying to find. The next day is what? In balance. So I'm very much going to be looking for trading opportunities off either side where I get rejection, okay? So that's the difference. You've got imbalance and you've got balance here. See that? What the market did. Guys, I can tell you, every algorithm in the world is trying to find this market condition. Balance, imbalance, and it will trade it accordingly when there's when we're in a balanced situation, i.e. rotational, like this, and then we come in the next day and we're within where the market has been in value, every algorithm in the world is going to be looking for absorption in these areas to then go to the other side and test. Well, it's going to look for absorption in these areas and look for the other side and test until we break out, and then we start to form value, and you'll see everyone bailing, and then it will go imbalanced, okay? And essentially that's the opposite of what happened on an imbalanced day, where we essentially broke out. So can you see it here? We broke outside of value, we came out, we got some balance. Everyone in the world knows, okay, we're building value outside of the value area low. We're outside of previous rotation, balance. We went imbalance. So all algorithms will be selling very early on in this environment. And then obviously people took profits, exhaustion or whatever, and then everyone starts bailing. So you see the reversion coming back in. These are things obviously you need to identify dynamically throughout the day, and you know, that's where you build alpha. And that's why being a trader is much more than just, oh, this indicator gave me some rule, so I'm going to do that. No, absolute garbage. Got to start to think outside the box and think, oh, you know, as the day goes on, oh, the market's got very short here because we were imbalanced. What happened? We had excess in this period. So, and then we're building value here. We're failing to go down anymore. The people that got short into this, they're going to bail. Boom. Do you see? This is all dynamic. You're going to develop this understanding over many, many months. And obviously, as you develop your career, you're going to develop this type of understanding where you're kind of getting that read. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on here, and I don't want to confuse you too much, but it all starts somewhere, doesn't it? With identifying areas for us to do business in and identify conditions. And that's what my point was, why I tried very hard, even though it may have seemed like I couldn't find what I was looking for. It's because I don't pre-plan any of this. All the examples I show you and will be showing you, I like to do it not pre-planned, because then I can very much show you that this is happening everywhere, and not just me cherry picking something or whatever where I think it may have happened before. No, that's not the case at all. So I just wanted to show you why obviously here we're looking at them, because it helps us to identify the next day, are we in the rotational environment or are we out of the rotational environment? Okay, so let's go back to the next point. So what's the next point? Next point is where it's unclear, okay? And I'll be honest with you, there are going to be situations where you and I do things differently. So give me a second. Let me just go and pull up either crude oil or the E-minis, and we'll find, and there's loads of them. It's very easy for me to pull these out, is where there's some areas where it's not very clear. So I'm just thinking what to do first. Shall I show you the example, or shall I just go through these guidelines very quickly about what I'm going to do in the example? So let me tell you this actually. If it's unclear, you've got to ask yourself, what is the market trying to achieve? What is it actually trying to do? And you've got to start thinking in terms of value, okay? So just remember these points, and then we'll come back to this. So just give me a second. Let me just go and find, because again, I've minimized it. I'm going to have to go and find it. Okay, so I managed to bring this back up, and actually, I haven't actually gone through this section, as you know, but hopefully we'll be able to find some really good examples of where it's great. And in fact, it's easy to find examples of where it's not clear cut, because markets aren't clear cut. So there's plenty of examples of both, but what I'll do is I will do that. But I just realized one thing, and that is that so where it's grey, and you'll see what I mean by where it's not clear, where we don't have this clear overlap in terms of two value areas for 2 days, 3 days, whatever. we do need to ask ourselves, what is it trying to do? What is it trying to achieve? And I'm going to show you how to do that. But there's another thing, absolutely crucial. If it's still unclear, merge them anyway and see how balanced it looks. Okay, so let's do that. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to maximize this. So let me just get rid of all this ink. Actually, so like I said, I haven't looked at this in donkey, so I don't actually know if there's going to be great examples, but yeah, it's easy. You can see there's loads of them here actually. What's probably easier is if I just go through a whole sort of section. Let's do that actually, because otherwise you're going to be wondering, am I looking for something? And I'm not. Actually, I'm trying to look for like really good examples where I can make my point, but it doesn't matter. Let's just go through them together. And in fact, I'm sorry to keep jumping. This is just literally how, guys, sorry, I'm a trader. I'm not a presenter. So, you know, you'll have to forgive my presentation skills not being so polished as you might be used to. But I think it's better because I can actually show you how I'm thinking throughout the day here. And actually what I've realized is let's just cover all of the bases off, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, rather than me trying to find ones that match these bullet, let's just cover them all off as I merge throughout the day. So where I've said here, some days may not be value, but when new days form will be value. What I mean there is, because I just noticed it here, is, can you see here, this day and this day? I'm not going to merge them because what? Value was clearly here and value was down here. But then look at the next day. I'm going to merge these three because what's actually happened? What has the market actually done? It's opened here, hasn't it? It's gone up. You see, it's actually not gone anywhere. That is balance, okay? But when you look at it as two individual days, it's not balance. When you've got that and that, it's the third. Do you see? And that's what I mean by it saying where 2 days may not be value where you merge, but then when a new day forms, you get balance because that third day kind of doesn't take you anywhere. You don't get value moving anywhere. So, you know, it's important to remember that essentially. So let's just remind ourselves again of this. So this is what we're going to do. And I know it seems like I'm a little bit all over the place at the moment, but it's not. Because what it is I'm trying to make sure that I cover all these items off without me jumping here, jumping there, jumping everywhere. Let's just try and cover them off as the market moves day by day. So you can see, you're going to have to make these decisions every day. So number one is, what's it trying to achieve? Number two is, merge them anyway if it's not clear. So these are all where it's unclear. What is it trying to achieve? Merge them anyway, and then remember, sometimes it may not be value, but then when it is, obviously you get the extra third day, it becomes value. So I just wanted you to remember all those 3 points because I'm not going to have them in front of us when we actually go through this. So let's now try to look for examples where all those 3 points come into the fore. So actually what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start here, right? And I'm going to work my way, and I'm going to show you what I would do from this day all the way. Let's do like quite a few days now together. And I want you to do this as task one. Okay, so on this day, Tuesday the 15th, value was there. Balance or value was here. I'm not going to merge them, am I? Look. Okay, so I'm not going to merge those two. But then what happened? We came in here. So we didn't go anywhere for 3 days, did we? What did we do? We actually balanced in this area. And do you remember what I said? If you're still unsure, merge them anyway, see what they look like. So let's do that. Okay, so remember, I'm actually going to go through all of these with you together now. Merge with next, merge with next. Okay. So to me, I like this. I know there's a chunk missing here, but that's okay. I still think it's pretty good balance for me. That's a decent area where the market's done nothing. Can you see why this is a great opportunity to generate alpha? Because honestly, you might decide that, do you know what, I'm going to wait for this volume. Do you remember how I said to you the market does fill volume in, and it will fill it, and it does fill it in the next day? You might wait for that to get filled in and say, actually, I don't necessarily want that to be a contextual level. So it's up to you guys at the end of the day, whether you merge it or not. That's where it's a little bit unclear and you have these grey areas. It's up to you. But if you were to ask me, I'd be okay with either decision you made in this instance. Okay, so let's undo all merges. You can leave it as it is, and the other thing is, when there's no, and I will explain this a little bit later, but when there's no sort of merging happening and there's no previous contextual levels, you can just trade off the prior value. So you can see the market's clearly doing that. So, you know, if you decided not to merge any of these, you could basically, you know, get short below here, look for imbalance, and then the next day we have value area high here. You can look for imbalance, which is what the market does. Then you come into the next day and you can look for imbalance downwards. Do you see what I mean? This is where you can actually start to add value as a trader, or build alpha, because, you know, you may have decided not to merge these, and here your decision paid off and you generated alpha for yourself. Whereas, like I said, I probably would have merged these three, and do you see, my value area would have ended up being slight. My contextual level wasn't as good as yours. It was down here. So I would have had to wait basically for some build to happen here and then go down. And actually, what it is this is the difficulty about teaching someone how to trade, is that this is just one lens. More than likely, I would have seen stuff in here that would have clued me in that we're going to attack this and maybe go down to some sort of previous value. But at the end of the day, that's way beyond the scope of task one. You're just going to get confused. Right now, all I want you to do is get used to finding areas where balance overlaps over multiple days, so these value areas become accurate to the point that you can use them to trade off. Okay, so we're going to do loads of examples, so don't worry, you know, if it looks like, oh, I'm lost, or I don't know, I need to see more of this to make sure I know what I'm doing. Don't worry, we're going to do loads. That's why I'm actually going to go through the whole period and show you that it is very subjective at times, not always. I've shown you where value is very clear. So anyway, I said that I would merge this, I would merge that. Can you see clearly? You're going to merge this, right? I'm going to anyway, because I see value here and I see value here. And to me, you're pretty much, the bulk of value is inside the previous value. And clearly the market was just filling in this area, you know. And again, what did I say? You can test. If you're not sure, you can test it and you can see what was the market trying to achieve. So what do I mean by that? Split it out. So look, split profile. Sorry, not split profile. Where we are. Letters blocked in their own column. Just split it out. It's obvious to me. What was the market trying to achieve? Opened up, went rotational for a bit, tried imbalance. Did it succeed? No, I think it failed. Came straight back into balance. So I'm going to merge them, because to me, the market failed going imbalanced and came back in. to my rotational environment. A, so it's passed that litmus test that I gave it. And then B, when I merge them, does it give me a nice uniform sort of a symmetrical distribution? Let's have a look. Merge with next profile. Yeah, it does. It's pretty solid, to be honest. It's not ideal. Obviously, you'd want that to be filled out, guys, but you've got to understand, trading isn't perfect, and actually it's very, very nice contextual levels. 100% I would be merging those. You can see it there. Very, very nice area of balance, and then we can use these levels to trade from and identify that that is a rotational environment. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, so we've done that, we've merged that. Would you then see, like I said, I don't want to cherry pick, so we're just going to keep going. Let's see, what would I do? You know, I'm literally being put on the spot here. So I can show you in a real trading environment, what would I typically be doing? And obviously in the Discord and stuff like that, I'll show you my merges. We can compare them. But my point is, I want you to see that they can be a bit subjective. And I like that. I embrace that. Because I know, do you know what? Maybe I'll be able to spot something that the algos, can you see? My whole point here is, and I really want you to see that, I don't want you to look at this and think, oh my God, I'm never going to get this. It's so confusing. It's not clear to me when I merge them or not. I want you to flip traditional status quo thinking on its head and realize this is where you will really become a trader. Because do you remember I talked about, and you might think this is off topic, but it isn't. Do you remember I talked about algorithms? And I said algorithms are very powerful in the depth of market, and we don't have edge there because obviously they're spotting absorption, they're spotting aggression, they're spotting spoofing in milliseconds. And it's quite obvious it's happening if you have the eye for it, and algorithms obviously are developed to see that because of the speed it's happening at. Because it's happening over days, right? Algorithms haven't got an edge over us in this, A. And B, can you see, because of this subjective, it's not, let's be fair, right? It's not like completely subjective and you line up 10 people and they're all going to give you different. No, it's not that. Let's be honest. It's pretty obvious that, you know, that is a decent balance area. All I'm saying is there is a little bit of grey which allows us this opportunity to have an advantage over an algorithm, because an algorithm wouldn't be able to do this. An algorithm wouldn't be able to sit there and think and say, hang on, what does it look like when I balance all of them? What's the market trying to achieve? Sorry about that, my data, because it's quite late right now. It's Friday night. I'm actually doing this. It's just settling to, as the market's about to doing some settling motions or whatever. It's actually the maintenance period, so that's why I just did that. Sorry, I got a bit distracted by that. But so where was I? So yeah, the algorithm is not able to do this type of stuff. Let me split it out. And we haven't even got to the splits yet, where you can actually start to split some of these out. You know, like I said, if something doesn't take your fancy, you can split it out. And obviously, in this particular example, I wouldn't. For now, I don't want you to do the splits. Let's just keep it. Sorry, give me a second. Let's just keep it as merges and unmerges. We'll come to the splits a little bit later. For now, let's just say, would we merge it or not merge it? Merge with that. And then do you remember I said I would merge these 2 days? Okay, so we're back where we started. Right. So like I said, algorithms obviously can't do this stuff, right? They can't just remove rightmost merging profile. There you go. So I took that out. Do you remember what I was saying? What's the market trying to achieve? Well, it went rotational, it went in balance here, came back, and basically it ended there. It wasn't able within sort of the balance here to achieve any imbalance, in my opinion. Do you see How do you program that into an algo? You can't. Huge edge as a human being. This is my point. You know, embrace this. This is when I saw this, I realized I've got an opportunity here to actually do what? Gain edge. Okay? Think about it. If you work for a company and you want to get promoted, can you do what everyone else is doing? No, of course not. You've got to do it differently. You've got to look for opportunities where you might be able to get an edge. You might be able to see things slightly differently to other people. I'm not saying the market isn't going to do this anyway. It is. But what are we trying to do? We're trying to spot what the market might be trying to achieve before anyone else. And that's what my point is. You see, if I'm able to spot this before the next RT8 session begins, when I do my hypothesis, I can get in before most other people do. And then I can make money off the back of when everyone else starts to see it. That's all we're trying to do. And this enables us to gain that little edge. This is what edge really is, okay? You've heard a lot about this edge. This is what edge really is. And honestly, I wish someone had sat me down and told me this and told me this is the secret sauce. It's no, you know, some magical indicator combined with this, combined with that. Nah, you'd be wasting your life looking for all that stuff. This is, start to become good at identifying balance and imbalance, those two conditions I told you about. So apologies, I did go slightly, wasn't really off track, but what it is a lot of times when I'm doing a lot of this stuff, I realize it's a golden opportunity for me to share these things with you. And that's why I do them a little bit off the cuff. But let's get back to the point. Would you merge this and this? Look, got balance somewhere like that. Completely out, isn't it? So personally, no, I wouldn't. Then let's go to the next day, Tuesday. Would you merge this? No, I wouldn't. Because look, balance is here. Balance is here. I'm not going to merge them. Okay? Then we come in here and we've got this. Do you remember that, not rule, but guide, where I said to you, you might have a few days where we're imbalanced and then new information comes in, and actually the whole period might be balanced. So that's, to me, that's what's happening here. And if in doubt, check it, see what it looks like. But I can tell you, just looking at this, I probably am going to merge this anyway, but I will check it. But I just want to make my point clear to you. So do you agree? Here we've got a composite, yeah? Here we've got individual day, no balance with this and this. This and this. But look what happens. We come in here. When you look at this period as a whole, what have you actually done? Nothing. It's balanced. We haven't gone anywhere. So I'm going to merge that. Or at least I'm going to see what it looks like when I merge it. So let's do that. Merge with next profile. Merge with next profile. Do you see it doesn't look right when I merge with next profile initially, but when I've merged with this profile, I think it looks quite good actually. I think it looks really good. Okay, ideally that's there and you wouldn't want it to be, but come on, markets are not perfect. Do we have a general really strong distribution? Yeah. And what I can assure you is I'm going to be watching this balance area months into the future, because that is your camera price of, it's been so long since I've done that webcam example. Was it 105? I think it was, wasn't it? £105? Guys, that's your £105 equivalent. That is a very, very, very strong balance area. That's the market telling you that for us, the E-mini S&P in this region, we're happy to transact. Buy market orders and sell market orders are happy to transact. How do we know that? Look how much volume built in this area. Okay, so my point is, what are you going to do when you come into this area in the future? Is you're going to wait, you're going to build some value, and you're going to start to play balance in this area. You're not going to try and play trend, as you may call it, or imbalance. You're going to play rotational balance. in this area if you ever came in the future. And I'm going to show you this anyway, how I mark these areas and identify them, and then I leave them on my chart. Point is, right now for task 1, I just want you to practice merging and getting used to. It's the first time you've seen it. This is, let's take it step by step, so you don't get analysis paralysis. Because you're not going to learn much if you do all of that. See, what it is there is this option here where you've got quite a few, right? And either you can merge them individually, but you see you can put merge profile begin and then merge profile end. Okay, so you can do that. And then we had this, then we had this area come in. So in fact, let's do that again. It was actually this whole area, wasn't it? Merge profile begin, and that was the last one, merge profile. So before I do that, can you see that it is actually very, very balanced? This area, it's balanced, isn't it? So I want to merge all of these together. So I'm going to go merge profile. Where are we? Merge profile, sorry, the software had a bit of it didn't have a moment, it's because I'd pressed begin on the same profile, I got a bit confused. Merge profile begin, okay, and merge profile end. There you go, okay. So we've got that area that we were looking at before. Now, would I merge the next day? No. Why? Because that's balance there, and look, where's the value area? Where's value? Can you see? Clearly there, two different areas. Value has moved. Do you remember how we said 105? Oh, we're now looking for. Has Amazon changed the price? And I don't want to go back to all those examples, but it's important. I show you. It's moved, hasn't it? It's moved. Value has moved. Do you remember? Don't think in terms of individual price. We're now thinking as price being value. Value has shifted. It's migrated up. Okay. Can you see, I'm not cherry picking. I've basically done every single day from the 15th to the 24th. I haven't skipped days. I'm showing you exactly what I would do and how I would identify context. Next day, nope, no merge, right? Next day, nope, easy, no merge. Not skipping any days. Okay, next day, no, obviously I wouldn't merge that because where's the previous value? Here. Where's value here? Here. This is my point. This is what I was trying to make before, and I know I did it in a bit of a roundabout way, but I hope you can actually see that was beneficial to you. Because the point is, can you see, if I had all these pre-picked examples and I got it already, you wouldn't see what I experience on a daily basis. I do sometimes sit here and think, shall I? Actually, let me see, what was it trying to achieve? Okay, if I merge it, how does it look? Do you see, I wanted you to see that even I face these decisions every day. And if I had shown you pre-prepared examples and I hadn't gone through that little bit of a, all over the place sort of approach that I did, it wouldn't have been reflective of my day, my trading day. There is never, when you get 2 days like this, obviously it's great, it's nice. And like I said, it does happen a good 50% of the time. You come into the market and you'll notice this. There you got balance and you got balance. Oh, easy, I'll merge the two together. Easy, don't even need to think about it. Fine, crack on, do the rest of my prep. But my point is, I didn't want to show you that type of stuff because it wouldn't have been reflective of the truth. That's why I took my time about it. I wanted to be a little bit all over the place because I wanted you to see that actually, you know what, that's what it's like. Even for envy, the market isn't perfect and sometimes you do have to use your discretion, generate alpha. Brilliant, great thing, not a bad thing. Look for opportunities where you can spot things before anyone else and actually think outside the box and think about it when you're at work. It's actually great. You look for opportunities where you can gain edge. I know it sounds awful, over your colleagues. Why? So you can progress. It's how it is in firms. When you're self-employed, doing the same thing. You've got other people that are self-employed in your business. You're looking for opportunities to do what? Do the job better than them. That's why I love this stuff. Because I realize if there's something that's unclear, I have an edge over an algorithm, because an algorithm's going to get confused. It's only as good as it's programmed. I can actually start to think for a little bit. Oh, maybe there's an opportunity here that people won't realize until the next day when they're actually doing it. By then it's too late. The crowds come in and everyone's doing it. So that's why I love this stuff. Anyway, so to the next day. So literally we're just going day by day, aren't we? So we merge these 2 days. Am I going to merge this with this? There's some overlap here. Well, let's see. Personally, it's obvious that we wouldn't, right? Because the value isn't overlapping. But how can we check? We can always open it out and we can actually see it here. That the market came out and yeah, I agree it went up, but it never formed any balance here, did it? Look at the J&K period, it just went straight up. It basically went imbalanced right up through it. But the point was, the bulk of the day, what did it do? Balanced outside of the main balance. So I'm not going to merge those two. It's obvious, right? You're not going to merge them. So with these grey areas, I'm going to repeat the point that I said before, which is that I got no issue where there's grey areas. If you merge and I don't merge, and at the end of the day, all power to you. That's why in a professional firm, not everyone makes it, because people sometimes do. They don't make decisions that generally the rest of the market agrees with. I've obviously been making the right decisions, but sometimes I get it wrong, and it's okay, because those days you might get it right. So don't despair. It's just over a period of time. Yeah, I happen to be, in the most humble way I mean this, very good at identifying these areas over periods of time. There's going to be days where the market doesn't agree with my definition of value, and I'll only find that out the next day when the market comes and trades the RT8 session. It will obviously give me that feedback in terms of actual trading, but that's my point. Individual days, don't worry too much. Just realize over time through your own trading. The only reason I'm saying all of this is because the points where I will tell you is if you start merging this with this, obviously I'm going to say, okay, look, do you know what? Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. Because here you got balance here and you got balance here. Why are you merging these two? Okay? And that's not a criticism at all. It's the first time you're doing it. Even if you're doing stuff like that, it's fine. My only point is I probably will be telling you, look, it's wrong. But where you've got these grey areas, and I might merge, you may not merge, as we saw before, who am I to tell you you're wrong? The market will tell you, okay? Remember that. Don't be shy and, start having confidence in your abilities and looking for market feedback on that. And the market will be the best judge, because other people will tell you whether where you've identified their perception of value is correct or not. Okay, so I apologize that I went on a little bit there, but I felt it was important that I say these things as they crop up in my mind. So personally, yeah, like I said, I wouldn't merge these two. This, to me, I think it's pretty good. I feel like that area, and actually we could kind of call it that area. I'm going to merge these, okay? I'll tell you right now, I'm going to merge these. If you want to, obviously, at the start of your career, if you want to do all these little tests every single time, that's great. And in fact, I'd suggest them. But I will tell you, I would merge these, because I know when I merge these two, they're going to look like a nice distribution, I think. And I hope I'm not wrong. Like I said, check them. Do you see? Look at that. Beautiful. What it is, I could tell, obviously, don't forget, I've been doing this for years, yeah. I could tell straight away, because think about it. What's this area doing? It's just filling in that chunk, isn't it? I could see it straight away. That's what it was doing. But that's why I always give these guidelines to people, is I say, look, do you know what? Until you've seen 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, God knows how many I've seen, probably hundreds of thousands I've seen of these things. Till you develop that, obviously check them. Check them anyway. How does it look? Does it look balanced? Yeah, brilliant balance. Very, very nice balance there. So I'm going to merge those two. Okay, so we've basically gone so far. That was balanced there, that was balanced. This, are we agreed? You wouldn't balance it. Okay, this and this is a tricky one. Very, very tricky one. Now, I think I already looked at this earlier, and I probably would balance these. And I think I did say this earlier, we were looking at this section. But honestly, there's no right or wrong answer. For me, over 2 days, again, for the reasons that I described before, I think that this area does fill in this area quite nicely, right? And hopefully that's the case. Let's merge them together. But I'll show you why you could actually, sorry. Can you see that? Very, very nice. And actually the market feedback the next day was, that's pretty decent, isn't it? Because look, you've got some nice morning opportunities at the RTH Open to play some imbalanced trades down, and then obviously it came back in. So I do like that. And I believe earlier in this section I did say that. But there's no right or wrong answer, okay, on this one, because you could also argue that, do you remember what I said? What's the market trying to achieve? You could argue, and I think very strongly and fairly, that the market has rejected this value area low, isn't it? I mean, and I think the market's given good feedback here that a lot of participants agree with you, you know. And you'll notice one of the things you can do if you don't have any composites to work off is you can just use the previous day's value, okay? And the market kind of agreed with you. It was a bit messy, wasn't it? But I don't know. I've given you my reasons. I actually think what the market was trying to achieve here is just fill in this gap. It's a bit more of an advanced thinking because obviously I've been looking at this for years, and I just got a feel, I think I know what the market's trying to achieve here, is it's trying to fill in some of this stuff. What it is I said to you before that sometimes you get profiles like this where the market will just blatantly come and fill this in, but where it's not so obvious is here, where actually if you think about what it's doing is that gap is actually very subtly there, and what the market's done is it's just basically filled that little section in there, and that's what's happened here. That's what I personally would merge it, but there's no right or wrong answer, you know. At the end of the day, if you said to me, what it is what I don't want happening, and I noticed that, and I said to you the failure rate was 80 to 90%, even in professional circles. When I became very senior, obviously I used to have a lot of junior guys, even in professional environments, walk up to me and say, what would you do in this situation? Where I was trying to help out some of the younger guys and showing them what I was doing in market profile. And a lot of them would say to me, what would you do? Would you merge this? Would you? End of the day, in these grey areas, what ideally I want you to do is I want you to say, do you know what? Envy, I think according to the guidelines I've given you, the market's trying to achieve a shift in balance into this area, so I'm not going to merge them. So I can't argue with you. You've given me a very good reason and you trade it that way, and let's see what the market tells us the next day. What's the point of people? What it is I noticed this when people say, what would you do? What's your rule for merging in this? Do you see? That's why I use an indicator. Where's the edge? If it was obvious, every algorithm in the world would be doing this and there'd be no money to make. Can you understand that? You've got to sometimes bite the bullet and say, do you know what? I'm using my critical thinking. The way that financial analysts read, what you call them, the performers and the financial statements of companies, and then look for intrinsic value to be wherever they think it is, or basically price to be away from where they think fair value is for a stock price, individual stocks. If you think about it, company stocks, people are looking at these things, very subjective. The best analysts are the ones that use some sort of critical thinking and look to see where they think that things are, or the market may give them feedback that they were right because they identified something that maybe someone else hadn't ahead of when the rest of the market realizes it. So really, that's what it is. This is giving you a great opportunity to do that. You know, when you've got some easy indicator that everyone has, come on, there's no edge. If it was that obvious, everyone would be using it and you'd be on a beach. This stuff is giving you a great opportunity, and I know I keep saying it, it's just because I want you to realize how golden this is as an opportunity to develop alpha, as opposed to you being downbeat and thinking, no, you know what, it's not clear, I don't know what to do. If it's logical and you can think of a good reason to merge, merge it. If it doesn't make sense to you, don't merge it. If you want to have a discussion with me, happy to do that. But it should be from a place of, do you know what, I noticed this, it wasn't very clear. What do you think? And I'm going to say to you, yes, good analysis, try it. But like I said, if you're down here and you're merging with that, don't really make sense. Or if you're just looking for some rule for me to tell you whether these two should merge, you're not going to find it. You're in the wrong business. And that I'm doing you a favor by telling you that, because no one's going to be honest with you. So I gave you the reason why I would merge them. You got to make that decision yourself. Okay? And there is things that we can look at later where we can obviously look to almost split this out. Look, split profile here. Do you see that? And I can merge. I don't need to do this right now. Do you see? I can actually start to split stuff out. The thing is, do you know what? I'm quite hesitant to even start. I'm going to show you doing this stuff, but I'm going to be honest with you. I did that whole process that I just showed you there about splitting letters out. I did it for, I think about 3 years, and I dropped it. I don't do it anymore. The reason I'm in two minds about showing you is because I want you to go on that journey, and I want you to figure it out for yourself whether it works for you or not. For me, I just found it's just trying to be too precise with imprecision. Essentially, the market's not perfect. Do you know what? I just said, do you know what? If it looks okay to me to merge, I'll merge it. If it doesn't, I won't merge it. I don't do all this, the first time I'm telling you. I don't do all the splitting stuff out, but I'm thinking the reason initially I thought let me show you is because I thought let me show everyone. Let them split stuff out, go on that journey themselves and figure out whether it works for them. Because I did it. I had the benefit of that. Then when I was doing this, I thought, actually, maybe I shouldn't, because obviously I don't do it. But actually, I am going to show you because I do want you to do it, but just not in task one. Let's leave that until a little bit later. Let's just get you merging for the time being. Profiles. So essentially, I've merged those two. So like I said, it was 50-50. This I'm not going to merge the next day. Let's just do a few more days and then I think we're pretty much done. Okay, so I'm going to take it up to here, and I think I've pretty much covered all bases, haven't I? So this and this, I'm not going to merge them. This, am I going to merge it with that? No. Easy decision. This, am I going to merge it with that? No. Easy decision. Clearly, balance was here, balance was here. I'm not going to merge them. This, easy decision, merge them. Do you see? A lot of the times it is easy. It is easy. I just wanted to show you some tough areas because when I'm not there, you're going to be stuck. So I thought, let me show you some. Let me just be fair and go through them one day by one day by one day, rather than just looking for particular areas. And that's why I got. I'm apologizing because I realized I was I was looking for stuff before, but you know what? At the end of the day, I wanted to show you that this is what I go through every day as a trader. This is the very foundation of what I'm doing every day. So we didn't merge that. We didn't merge that. Potentially, I could merge these three because it didn't really go anywhere, did it, for those 3 days? So what did I say? Just merge them, see what it looks like. Does it look like it's got the symmetrical Gaussian shape, they call it? Do you see that? Do you see that? It's amazing, isn't it, how the market does this? This is auction market process. This is the auction process at its finest. Can you see? I told you I wouldn't have merged those two, but can you see how we had this and it needed to be filled in? Look what happened. Market filled it in beautifully. Anyway, we said we'd look what the 3 days look like, so let's merge them. Yeah, do you see? I don't like it. I don't like it. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't like it when I saw it anyway, because so we had this area, we've got this and this, which obviously we did merge, and that's why I called it 3 days. Actually, it's 4 days. You see, what it is I don't like, I'll tell you why I didn't like it, okay, is because you have value here, you've got value here, and you've got value here, but can you see you've got this bit of value here? And almost you could say it was here. And I don't like how this is very much outside of where the main value area is. You've got this little chunk here. I don't like it. It's very subtle. You might be thinking, what is he talking about? It's very subtle. What it is I can almost, because you've got to understand, I've done these probably 1,000,000 times, so I can almost visualize how it looks when you combine them. Don't get me wrong, I still combine them at times just to check them out. Why not? It takes a few seconds. But the point is, you can kind of see. You see that prominence there? Just didn't like it, basically. You can see it really, I just don't like how this area sticks out a lot. And anyway, you got another problem here, to be fair. Even if I had merged them and looked, I wouldn't. Yeah, look at that. What's the problem? Can you see it's two distributions? So you kind of got this, which I don't like anyway, because you've got this little bit of prominence there, and then this you've got. Can you see it's two distributions? And to be honest, that's an even more important reason than me just being finicky about that. Is essentially you've got a value area here and you've got a value area here. There's no merge, guys. Right? This is one of those where I probably would, if you came and asked me and say, should I would say, look, in my opinion, that's not correct. It's not statistically a balanced proposition. And not even statistically. Forget about statistically, logically. There's no balance. There's two balances. Clearly the market was balanced here and balanced here. There's imbalance in this area. That makes sense. So I'm not going to merge them. However, I do believe that we would start to merge it when we get into this area. I do like that. Because if you think about it, we've got these days here now. Look at that. It's really filling in this bit of low volume that we saw when we merged the 4 days together, right? So let's merge. Do you remember you can either do merge profile begin, and then here, merge profile end, and then merge them. We'll do them one by one anyway. Merge. So do you remember I said I probably wouldn't merge this, that I wouldn't merge it. But then when you bring that in, it should probably start to fill that in. Even though you've still got that, I'll be honest with you. Do you see, it can be quite subjective. For me, okay, we've got this little bit that needs filling in, but I kind of like it. Because what it is, right, I can see what the market's trying to achieve. Right? Can you see that? This is what I'm saying. Why I don't mean this in an arrogant way. Actually, I'm saying this because and I hope you see I'm trying to help you. I think this is really what differentiates sort of even people coming into professional environments, and why you do have this fact that a lot of them weren't able to apply this thinking, okay? And the reason I'm telling you this is because I want to give you an example of that type of thinking that they can't teach you, okay? They can't teach you that. Okay, so let me give you an example. They may be able to show you, and I may be able to show you, guys, look, market profile, value, this is what the market's trying to achieve, all the stuff we've done in auction market theory. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's a day in the S&P 500, a new day, and you're going to rules-based, like I say, merge them, see how they look or whatever. But ultimately, okay, I understand I said here I probably wouldn't merge these because it's still quite prominent, the fact that there's two profiles. But then you might ask me, when I merge the next profile, it's still quite prominent, but at the end of the day, I'm also applying a bit of logic and critical thinking and saying, hang on, what's the market been doing for 4 days? It's gone nowhere, right? What's the market actually done here? Okay, I told you I didn't like that bit sticking out at the top, but what has the market clearly told me? It's almost like here the market's talking to me and saying, Envy, I agree with you. That area wasn't ideal, but look, we're going to show you that actually the value is here. Because why? The whole day traded in this area that I was considering for the last 4 days. So do you see, that's where I'm applying some sense that, okay, do you know what? This market is rotational in this 5-day period. So I'm going to trade this day within balance of that day, you know. Okay, it wasn't ideal from a statistical perspective according to the guidelines I gave you, but this is where you can add alpha. Because to me, it's quite clear, what is the market trying to do? It's trying to rotate, and look what happened here next day. So I like I said, I would merge these. There's no right or wrong answer. Honestly, if you didn't, you're not going to be a failure as a trader or anything like that. It's ridiculous. But I'm just trying to give you an example of decisions that you can make over time that will be the difference. You know, if you keep doing this over and over and over again, obviously you're going to be able to generate great alpha by trading this day as a rotational day, right? These are going to be my contextual levels that I'm going to be looking at to trade off. So, you know, if I get some excess here, some absorption, I'm going to be looking. If I get excess here, absorption, I'm going to be looking to do mean reversion. Can you see that in these contextual areas? So look, that's enough there. You know, we can do some examples as well. In fact, what I'm going to do after this is, let me just go back to the slide, make sure that I've covered everything. And in fact, what I haven't covered is this. And I haven't covered this. Okay, so I'm going to end this section in a second. Let me just set up this RTH chart and show you something that I used to do to help guide me. I don't do it anymore. It's up to you if you want to do it. I'm not going to use it and show you because I don't use it. But I'll show you what I used to do early in my career sometimes, which was kind of helpful for me anyway. But I don't know. I don't really use it anymore, so it's up to you whether you use it or not. But so give me a second, let me just bring that up. Okay, so what I've done here is I've loaded up here an RTH chart. Do you remember I said you can use the basic RTH chart? So you can see it's got gaps basically here to here, open to close. And basically, if you think about it, what is this chart? This is the market profile, isn't it? Period. because as I said, it's the RTH. So all this represents each market profile period. If you think about it, what we've just been looking at, and I hope I've got these dates lined up correctly. So can you see here, Thursday the 7th is that. It's basically this, isn't it? And then the next day is there. And so on and so forth. So basically, one of the things that I used to do is, you know, if I wasn't sure about a particular, you know how I said that, you know, I would merge these days, even though it didn't look quite clear when you merged them. Well, let's have a look. So what I would do is I'd say, look, the 7th to the 13th is this. 7th to the 13th. So can you see? Guys, you know, basically it's about as clear you're going to get. Balance. Right? I don't actually use this, but I guess it kind of shows. My point that I was trying to make to you about why I was thinking to myself, hang on, well, I don't care if my profile looks a little bit, wasn't that bad, but you see my point. I'm going to use a bit of logic here and say, well, actually, what have we actually been doing for these days? And you can see it's very clear here on an RTH chart. So, you know, I'll probably put this in the template if you want. I'll give it to you. You can just have a look at the individual days. And sometimes by looking at what the price is doing and what it's trying to achieve, makes it gets you away sometimes from being too rules-based, is my point. So I used to find that useful. I don't use it anymore, but like I said, I want you to go through the journey. So by all means, if you want to use that, use it. I don't, but thought I'd give you that little tip. No one told me to do that. Just seemed logical to me. Let me just go and have a look. What does it look like when I scrunched up price chart? Obviously no indicators, guys, yeah, just literally pure value price action. Kind of stuff we saw on the Amazon stuff I was showing you with the bread and the Cadbury's cream eggs. And do you remember we had price literally just going like that? And I said, well, do you know what? Value's kind of 70% in that period, and just different perspective, isn't it? It's like, it's nice to look at two perspectives, and it can kind of, you know, sometimes you can start to get a bit too stuck in your ways with one, and I've used to find this really useful many years ago. I'll be honest with you, I dropped it now. No. Like I said, I've obviously developed that critical thinking now, but, you know, it takes everyone time, and it's good. I think it's good to look at it in that way sometimes. If it's not clear to you, then you can look at that. But I don't do it anymore, but again, like I said, free tip, you know, for me to give you. And then the final thing we are going to end now is long-term versus short-term. The reason I've put that there is because basically I have no idea. Again, I don't want to just cherry pick examples. I want to see if I can actually find you a good example of this. Just undo all the merges in the chart. It's what it is you'll get like long periods of time when they're in this, like sorry, beg your pardon, my mouse has given up. Sorry, my mouse had a moment there. What it is you'll find long periods of time where basically the market won't really go anywhere. But I'm not going to merge all that area because of my time frame perspective. So just give me a second. I will. There must be somewhere on here where we've had that type of period. Probably do need to, you know, like I said, I like to look at this stuff in blocks. All right, there you go. There's a good sort of example of it, but we'll have to scrunch it up a little bit. Right, so actually I'll have to move this because I think my head probably, that should be about right. Perfect. So look, this area here, because the market didn't really go anywhere. Let me do that again. So you can see from a sort of, if you were intraday player, you'd probably have balance here, then you'd have balance here, a couple days, you'd have balance here, 3 days, then you might merge this whole area here, and then you'd have some balance here, right? Because I'm an intraday player, I'm looking for what? Day opportunities to play from there down to there. That's a good range, 10 points, 30, 40 ticks in the ES. And then I've got 2 days here where I might be looking to obviously play this range. Or if I'm going imbalanced, I might just be looking to do that. The thing is, we got to realize is actually, to some people, that entire thing is balance, okay? Do I merge all of that? No, I don't. But there's nothing wrong with it, because if you think about it, that's actually balance, right? For, if you think about it, this whole area here, it's just balance, isn't it? For someone with a longer term perspective. So if you're a longer term trader, nothing wrong with thinking, shall I actually look at, what is it, up to there? I've never done it, so I don't know what it looks like, but it's not bad. It's not bad, actually, if you think about it. And look, the market feedback was, it agreed. I know that you've got a lot of areas that need filling in, but look, at the end of the day, it's not bad, to be honest. That top area probably isn't, sorry. So when I say top area, the value area low is pretty accurate, right? Value area high is probably a bit higher, somewhere like there. It's actually pretty accurate. And if you think about it, what's the market done? It's rejected this area of balance, fundamental shift, and look what's happened. Gone straight out of this area and actually come back and tested it. So some great opportunities to actually play this down if you're a longer term player, is my point. So what it is that's why I put that on the slide, because I just thought there might be some people who identify, I said that. Do you remember I did say that probably could be a little bit high, whatever it was. And look, the market agrees. Look, there are some great opportunities to play the edges. Market feedback. Guys, I've never done this before. So as you saw, I was looking for examples randomly. It wasn't cherry picked. First time I've looked at this. If you're a higher time frame, as you call it in retail, I call it obviously a different perspective. There's a word for it. It's called OTF. If you read the market profile books I told you about, it's other time frame participants. But actually, for me, it's more guys that are like real money funds, people who are playing longer term strategies, even longer term hedge fund strategies, that are playing this. But clearly, look, do you remember the edges? You and I, we might be playing, do you see imbalance here? Someone on a bigger perspective, they wouldn't. They'd be playing this as a rotational play right up to the other side. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Obviously decide what you are. I personally wouldn't do a merge like this. Like I told you, it's all perspective. I'm obviously an intraday person. So for me, I'm not going to look at that as one. I'm going to look at it as, a few days balance. So balance here. Oh God, sorry. Balance here. Balance here. Balance here. balance here, whereas someone else, look at that whole area is balance, is my point, and I just showed you that. So look, that's the end. Task 1, I want you to spend a couple of weeks. What I'm going to do straight after this is, I'm going to obviously show you how the splits can work, and I'll do a little bit more with, you know, maybe some S&P and also definitely crude oil, and show you how I would necessarily approach merges, and you can have a look at that. And that will then form part of task 2, where I show you how I actually identify them using this horizontal square, which will then be shown on my chart. So I'm going to show that to you as a supplement to this, but essentially this is the end of part B. Start to just merge profiles, get used to the software. Incredible software. Can't believe this thing, how much it costs, because I'm telling you, to do this type of work on Market Profile, even on CQG, which is several $100, you know, up to $1,000 a month if you want to spend it, it doesn't come close to this. This thing is instant, and it allows you to merge profiles in such a easy manner, you know. So yeah, enjoy it. And look, finally, I do want to apologize, because I feel like I've been a little bit disjointed, but not in a bad way in this. And you've got to remember, this isn't theory anymore. This is practice. So I hope you can appreciate that, rather than me going away and finding a list of 10 examples and then I can show you everything. I've done it on the spot. So I can show you what I go through every day. It hasn't been, in my opinion, disjointed. Actually, it's been better. That I've had to be a little bit aimlessly looking around for things, and because that's how it is in trading, you know. Don't let any educator or whatever give you cherry-picked examples and have them prepared. It's all nonsense, okay? At the end of the day, market's going to be different every day, and that's why I thought, do you know what? Let me just go and look for stuff whilst I'm actually filming, because then they'll really get a feel for how it can be difficult and subjective every day, but a great opportunity to generate alpha. So let's get you merging, see how you get on with that. Obviously get you doing that, no necessarily time limits, maybe a couple of weeks or whatever. And then I'm going to introduce obviously VWAP. I'll try and put some more examples straight after this, but don't wait for that. There'll be a template, and yeah, just get cracking with letters, blocks, whatever, and then see how you get on. Cheers, guys.